Mike Tomlin spoke to the media for his first official regular season press conference of the season. In doing so, he says he expects TJ Watt to not only practice this week, but play on Sunday. He gave a lot on his perspective. We're going to break all of that down right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always on Wednesdays, we do our thing with the agency, the C, the I, the A. I'm Chris Carter here with Dean Iampietro of Channel 11 WPXI and Joshua Axelrod of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It is another fun day in Steeler Nation. And guys, we get to preview some football this week. They're playing the Bills.
Woo-hoo! Hell yeah.
We're going to talk about their matchup with Josh Allen because he's the key to this game in the second segment. But leading off, we have to address more from the TJ Watt saga. Mike Tomlin spoke at his weekday press availability on Tuesdays, Tomlin Tuesdays and all that. And he was pretty directive, but also, he was direct in what he thought about the situation, but also not direct in everything that might be available to him as information was. When he was asked about TJ Watt and participation this week, he says, quote, "I remain optimistic that something's going to get done from a deal perspective. That aside, I'm expecting him, TJ Watt, to work tomorrow. I'm proceeding with the assumption that he's going to work tomorrow. That's kind of the approach I'm taking. He's missed some time due to obvious reasons, but like I've also mentioned, over the course of this team's developmental process, I focus very little on those who aren't working for whatever reason that they're not working." So he goes basically on to say that he's been focusing on the guys that have been there. He says, as far as for TJ Watt not getting a lot of football contact, he says the Steelers will play it by ear. One thing he's not going to do is assume that he's a regular or a normal person. And he brought up how there are other players in the NFL history, even recent NFL history, that similarly to TJ Watt didn't practice a lot during contact negotiations and were ready for week one and had great seasons, bringing up a player like Aaron Donald in the process. And let's face it, TJ Watt was the runner-up to Aaron Donald last year, so you could say they're in the same class of being some of the best defenders in the NFL. But, gentlemen, what say you about this situation? How did you feel about Tomlin's approach to the question on TJ Watt, and do you think he's going to play this weekend?
When Coach Tomlin's words, I don't know how much more clear I can give it to you. I'm proceeding with the assumption that he's a full participant and working tomorrow. Now, I'm just making fun. That was a Tomlin quote, though, when he was asked probably the fourth or fifth time about TJ Watt. I think that he was actually quite forthcoming in addressing it, especially for Coach Tomlin, who's pretty close to the vest on a lot of things. And especially the part where, he admits he had a conversation with TJ, but he's not saying what was in the conversation with TJ. So he's just not speaking out of turn here. And I don't think, I think Mike obviously knew something and that we didn't know or aren't privy to. And so hopefully everything's going to be smooth. In terms of, what he talks about and getting ready for with the people that he has, guys, this is actually a good thing. He's been able to pay attention to Highsmith. He's been able to pay attention to Ingram.
Yep.
And developing that depth and developing those people along the way, it's only going to make that linebacking core better, because TJ Watt should be able to just step in on week one and do TJ Watt things.
Yeah, I mean, Tomlin didn't have to answer the question as directly as he did. Like, he could have just gone full Tomlin and
just not answered it. It's just been like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. I say all the things without saying anything.
Yeah, some sort of weird, Tomlinism that means absolutely nothing, but is a word salad.
We'll leave a light on for him.
But yeah, no, saying that he's optimistic, I mean, that's kind of more than we've gotten from him on a lot of issues, which theoretically signals, I bet you, I mean, who knows at this point when a deal is going to get done. I don't want to conjecture, but it sounds like it's going to get done at some point, whether that's before the Bills game or whether it's after. I saw some reporting that it could happen after, which would be unprecedented, but it's TJ Watt, so it would be fine if. I think it would make sense for the Steelers to make some exceptions for him. But yeah,
now,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I assume these are reports you're referencing.
Yes,
gave a
I was
few
referencing my colleague.
Jerry says the Steelers and TJ Watt have yet to finalize a new contract. He said this on his Twitter account to make the All-Pro linebacker the highest paid defensive player of the NFL because they cannot agree on several items, most significantly the amount of guaranteed money per team sources. He brought up how Mike Tomlin said about TJ Watt, who's been with the team since start of training camp, will be a quote unquote full participant on Wednesday. Even if they had, and then he also brought up this interesting point because a lot of people are looking at, man, if this deal doesn't get done by the start of the season, it won't get done. Jerry says no, that's not the case. He says if Watt doesn't sign a new contract by Sunday in Buffalo, it doesn't mean they won't get a deal done. While Steelers have a policy of not negotiating during the season, they will sign a player after the start of the season if they had already been negotiating with him. Bringing up in 1995, Steelers signed safety Darren Perry to a new contract on September 20th, 17 days after the start of the regular season, because they had been negotiating with him since training camp. Okay. So that sort of sets a different precedent than I think a lot of people really considered. But bottom line here is that this is a crucial game. The Buffalo Bills are a key AFC opponent. There are tiebreaker implications that could come into this with common opponents and with another AFC record team that can impact playoff chances later down the line. And it's also could be a huge statement game where if they beat the Bills, it kind of sends to the world like the Steelers are not this pushover that you think they are. That's why I see this game as very important and why they need their best player on the field, and that is undoubtedly TJ Watt. But there's some key matchup things we want to talk about with Josh Allen. He's the Bills' best player, I would say, and there's a lot of matchup parts. We're going to get to that in the second segment, but first, I got to tell you guys about betonline.ag. Now, betonline, as you know, it's that time of the year again, all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, betonline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the odds, props, contests, including the $500,000 NFL Mega Contest and the $200,000 NFL Survivor Contest, both open right now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus when you sign up. Be sure to take advantage of all the opening day super promos, including make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose that bet, your wager will be refunded up to $25. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football to basketball to boxing, right down to horse racing. Don't wait and take advantage of all of the great offers available for the 2021 season at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, joined by Dean Iampietro and Josh Axelrod. We're keeping it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's shift to some pregame talk against Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen, easily a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, led the Bills to an AFC championship appearance for the first time in God knows how long. But in this situation, you see this team needing to prepare for Josh Allen. Now, in the last 2 years, the Steelers have lost to the Bills in 2 games that Josh Allen has started. However, his numbers have not been overly dominant. Last year, he went 24-43 for 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, was sacked once. That's a passer rating of about 77.5. Also fumbled in that game at one point, though the Bills did recover it. The year before that, he went 13 of 25 for 139 yards with a touchdown and an interception and was sacked as well. Did also rush for a touchdown in that game. But you look at this, and the Steelers haven't been killed by Josh Allen. Now, he did step up in the second half of that last game last year, open up the second half with 2 touchdown drives, and that's ultimately what broke the game open for a 26-15 win. But I really see the Steelers defense as a group that can run with this Bills offense and give them a hard time. It's going to be about, to me, the Steelers offense backing them up and putting points up on the board, something they haven't done, scoring 15 last year and 10 points the year before. Now, granted, that was with Devlin Hodges 2 years ago, so that's kind of a mulligan. But to me, I really think this team can limit Josh Allen. Dean, are you overly worried that he may take over this game and just blow apart this defense?
I want to see like an arena football game here, okay? I want to see like 56-55 because I might have Josh Allen.
That's it. Dean's being selfish. That's what I want to hear.
Say what you mean, Dean. Say what you mean.
But I also have Najee Harris and Juju Smith-Schuster. So I want
isn't about the Steelers. He just wants to win fantasy. That's all this is.
I want a lot of offense out of this game. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, but I think we learned last year how valuable Joe Hayden was.
Oh yes,
in that
because
game.
Diggs started
And
when they realized, oh wait, he's being guarded by Steven Nelson. We could go there, and they
right.
did.
So Hayden's here this time, and there's something to, and Tomlin talked about it in his news conference about playing them in the first game of the year instead of
Yes.
after everyone's has an identity of who they are. And so there's still teams are feeling out, and even the really good ones on paper still feeling out who they are. And so there's more of a chance to get to somebody, and the Bills may not be as sharp. They've had some turmoil with COVID and other things throughout the preseason. So, they're not walking in a well-oiled machine. They look good in the preseason when their starters were in, sure. But I think this defense is going to give Josh Allen more of a challenge. And with that, and with the inside linebackers they now have back, I think that the Bills offense could be in for a long day.
I have Juju in fantasy as well. So I love a big game out of Juju.
Yes.
I mean, let me just say, I respect the hell out of what Josh Allen did last year. I don't think most people projected him to be that good at any point in his NFL career. So that man's already exceeded expectations, and chances are he hasn't reached his final form yet. So he might come in even better than last year. I'm not super scared of him personally. Like, the Steelers defense is still beastly. Honestly, with or without TJ Watt, the Steelers defense is really, really good.
Yeah.
I am more concerned about the offense's ability to keep to put up points than for our defense to keep Josh Allen in check. I know people talk all the time about how Steelers linebackers somehow always end up on teams' best receivers. We were talking pre-podcast about how that's a little overblown. The Steelers now have Joe Schobert, so they have a legitimate coverage linebacker. So that's a good start. So if they're going to try to figure out ways to get Stephon Diggs onto a Steelers linebacker, at least we have one who knows how to cover now. So that's a great start. Again, hey, if Tomlin spent time on the defensive line, like Dean said, that means Highsmith and Ingram and whoever would need to step in for TJ if he's not playing. They should be good to go. I think Allen's going to have a decent game. Like he's officially reached that status where you can't really stop him. You can only contain him. I think the Steelers are one of the few defenses in the NFL that can actually contain him. And at least not – it also helps that the Bills running backs are okay. As the Devin Singletary fantasy owner last year, I can tell you, not great. So, yeah, I think it'll be a challenge, but I think the defense is probably up to it.
Now, something that Tomlin brought up that I thought was also very interesting in his presser, he says when talking about this game, quote, the turnover game is also significant. If you look at the recent history of this matchup, it's played out in a very significant way. In 2019, we threw 4 interceptions here in Pittsburgh against them, and obviously that was significant in the term of how the game unfolded. And I thought the pick 6 right before the half last year was a big play, as big a play as there was in that game, and really kind of changed the trajectory of that game last year. That's not something new. That's nothing exclusive to this matchup. But for those of you watching us through the team development, you know how we embrace the ball security and element of competition and the ball searching element of competition. So point being, a lot of this does have to do with protecting the football, not throwing interceptions, not giving them the easy mistakes. Because Tomlin's point is correct. That was a 7-point swing and maybe a 10-point swing. If they get a field goal out of that drive, they lost by 11. So, that's a very close. I mean, that's a possession. That means you take that off the board. The Steelers could win the game with their last possession of the game. And, it puts a whole different perspective with the Bills coming out in that second half. Man, we're a little nervous about this. So he's right. They can't afford to give those kind of cushions. And granted, 2 years ago, it was Devlin Hodges being the quarterback. You knew what that was going to be. But, for the Steelers, they also need to create turnovers on Josh Allen. Yeah, he looked really good in that preseason game against the Packers, but your defense should be fresh. Your defense should be healthy. One factor that I've written for DK Pittsburgh Sports about for this week is how having 2 healthy inside linebackers who can not only cover, but run and hit in space is going to be huge. And of course, Devin Bush and Joe Schobert there, because when you go back and you look at what the Bills did last year, early in that half, and Jenna Harner, our person at Channel 11 with you, Dean, she, knowing a lot of people from Buffalo, was like, talking to them, and they said we had never seen a defense give that offense that kind of fits in the first half. But in the second half, they opened things up. How did they do that? Stephon Diggs, not only did they go after him, but he was working towards the middle part of the field where the Steelers were weak, because Devin Bush was out, Vince Williams was out, Robert Spillane was out, and it was Marcus Allen and Avery Williamson in the middle of the field. And even if Robert Spillane was there, that's still a weaker spot when you don't have your starters in there. This week, they will have both starters available unless a surprise happens. But, that's looking like the case. So for me, watching how they play, and I went over film on how Devin Bush played against him in 2019. Again, the defense held them to 17 points with 4 turnovers. That was really impressive in 2019. And again, Josh Allen only threw for 139 yards in that game. I think Devin Bush played a serious role in that. I even looked at Joe Schobert with his game with the Browns several times when it was key third down situations. You'd see Schobert patrol in the middle of the field and either spying on Allen, making sure, hey, you're either going to run into me or you're going to have to throw it past me to get it through here, or running and hitting a running back out in space when Josh Allen tried to dump down pass. Having those two guys there, to me, makes the world of difference when facing an athletic and smart quarterback like Josh Allen.
It does. And if we could just does it have to be Josh Allen turnovers? Can it be Stephon Diggs?
It could be anybody. You
or
could force a fumble or do anything. Yes.
Or Sanders or Beasley. Not Josh. Just not Josh. Get all the turnovers you want. All the turnovers you want, just not Josh Allen.
Into play. I see through you, my friend.
Everyone should.
I'm not hiding. There's nothing to see through. I am a pane of glass. I want my fantasy team to win, but go Steelers. Like that's who you are.
I guess I would just interject and say I'm more worried about Tre'Davious White than I am about Josh Allen. Is my main take on the Bills.
And I'll tell you this right now. The Steelers know how good of a player he is. I really expect him to follow Deontay Johnson around the field. But here's my big thing with attacking this secondary. Chase Claypool got seriously checked by this team last year. Josh Norman got up in his face, pressed him, and he didn't know how to counter that. Chase Claypool is much better at beating the press than he was that time last year. I see that being a very big difference. Also, Josh Norman's not there anymore. I see this being a very interesting opportunity for him to come back and say, hey, I'm a different person. Y'all ain't doing that press thing to me this year. And I also see the tight ends being a big factor here because Buffalo struggled last year against the tight ends as they struggled against the run game last year. There are certainly opportunities for the Steelers offense to take it to them. I will break that more down with Joe Marino of Locked On Bills tomorrow for our crossover episode when we do our Steelers Bills Locked On crossover. But I want to get to some final thoughts here. There was some updated news on a former Steeler joining a division rival. If you've been paying attention, you know who we're talking about, but we'll get to that in just a second. First, I got to tell you guys about Built Bar. If you want a healthy bar that tastes like a candy bar, then Built Bar is the protein bar for you. It's the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team, and it comes in so many different flavors. Whether you want a fruity snack like raspberry, strawberry, or orange, or something different like salted caramel, cookies and cream, Rocky Road, or my personal favorite, double chocolate. Built Bar has so many flavors for you to enjoy. And the best part is they're all healthy. They range from 130 to 180 calories, 17 to 18 grams of protein, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. That's a tasty and healthy snack. They'll save you from eating that snack you'll regret later and stay on task with anyone's diet. Order today and get your favorite flavor delivered right to your door by going to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED 15, LOCKED15, no, all capital letters, no spaces, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And we're also brought to you by Run Your Pool. Football season is back, and let's make the most of it with a better way to create your custom pool at runyourpool.com, the premier sports pool hosting service. Run Your Pool makes it ridiculously easy to run a football pool with friends, family, or office mates. They offer dozens of formats, including Survivor, Pick'em, Squares, Margin, Confidence Pools, 33, and more. Run Your Pool hosts all formats for NFL, college football with 1-week games, full season playoffs, or the Super Bowl. Unlike other fantasy sports platforms, Run Your Pool has options and settings to make it your own. You can even brand your pool for your local business, bar, or restaurant, reconnect with friends, and join nearly 2 million football fans to make every game action-packed this season. Check them out today and get your $10 off at runyourpool.com/lockedon, or use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout at runyourpool.com. Anywhere, everywhere in the world, Run Your Pool helps friends and colleagues compete. The NFL season starts September 9th. Start today at runyourpool.com/lockedon and have your pool up and running in minutes. Runyourpool.com/lockedon. Game on. And as always, if we do back-to-back live reads, we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's wrap with some quick talk because, guys, there was a huge move, a monumental move, I would say, where the Baltimore Ravens went out because, and the Baltimore Ravens, they are hurting right now. We already know J.K. Dobbins was gone for the season. They lost Justice Hill, a younger running back who's a speedier guy, to the season. So all they had was Gus Edwards. So they went out and got former Steeler running back Le'Veon Bell, signing him to a deal, and Le'Veon Bell posting a video. I got to ask you guys, this is a big move to go get a former Steeler, guy that was formerly maybe the best running back in the NFL. Do you guys think that this is a major deal and a problem that the Steelers are going to have to deal with this year?
Bell.
No. Sorry if we just get laughing really hard. But point being, Le'Veon Bell, not the same guy he was. Now I'm on this train, and all jokes aside, I'm on this train. I do think Le'Veon Bell in an offense with Lamar Jackson could work. Not that he's going to be a superstar, but he could be an annoyance if he's in the right system. He hasn't found that right system since he's left the Steelers. Dean, you look like you completely disagree with me. What do you say?
He hasn't found the right system since he left the Steelers. Imagine that, Le'Veon. Imagine that, Mr. 15 million. Imagine that.
Shots at the man.
Imagine that. You weren't all that. You weren't worth that money. Sorry, pal. And you didn't get the ring either. Your buddy AB did.
Yeah, that was crazy, though.
Le'Veon's best days are behind him, without a doubt. And the Ravens are grasping at straws here. I think he's going to look across the sideline, and he's going to see Najee Harris tearing it up, and he's going to be sad. And he might write another monotone song.
Dang, why are you coming at his music, though? He didn't rap about the Steelers.
You want to call that music?
Dang. It is mumble rap. I'm not a big mumble rap guy. Before Dean starts giving us his music critiques, Josh, your thoughts on the Le'Veon Bell joining the Ravens signing?
I would ask who hurt Dean, but the answer was clearly Le'Veon Bell.
Apparently, shoosh.
I think the Ravens are clearly in dire straits.
Yes.
At a certain point, as I've said, I think I've said this about the Steelers' offensive line and about the secondary, but at a certain point, you just need warm bodies, and the Ravens did not have any warm bodies at running backs. Le'Veon Bell, say what you will about him, he's a warm body. He can hold a football. He can hold a football and run behind the offensive line if you need him to.
Josh, you make a great point, because they are in dire straits because they just spent money for nothing.
The problem is, what's going to happen here is that Bell's going to play his best against the Steelers. That's almost certainly going to happen.
No,
his best might not be an amazing game.
Watt is going to eat his lunch.
I certainly hope so.
I still see Gus Edwards being their primary option with Le'Veon Bell there. And Gus Edwards, I think, is an underrated running back in the NFL. I think he has a good future with that team.
But Lamar Jackson's a great running back, so it's okay.
Here we go. We weren't even talking about Lamar Jackson. Here he goes taking shots at him, man. Gosh, we're just trying to get to this segment about Le'Veon Bell.
Eat a Snickers, Dean. Eat a Snickers.
Eat a Snickers. You're mad at Le'Veon Bell. You're mad at Lamar Jackson. We get it. This is the Locked On Steelers podcast, but you do need a Snickers.
I'm just doing what the fans want.
It's going to be wild.
I'm a man of the people.
It's going to be wild when the Steelers are lining up against Al Villanueva and Le'Veon Bell on the same.
Not about that. Yeah.
That's going to be absolutely insane when TJ Watt's eating Al Villanueva alive and Le'Veon Bell alive on the same play.
Beautiful.
Okay, it would be an ultimate highlight if not just TJ Watt, if Devin Bush or Alex Highsmith blows up Alejandro Villanueva and then forces a fumble on Le'Veon Bell in the same play. I think that would be a picture perfect, take that, Baltimore. Seriously. So that's serious. But Le'Veon Bell, looking at the last couple seasons, last year he played with both the Chiefs and the Jets. He had a total of 328 yards on 82 carries for 2 touchdowns, 4 yards per carry, which isn't a bad average. But only had 138 yards through the air. The year before that, he had 789 yards and 245 carries for 3 touchdowns with the Jets. I also think this is what this also says is you go to Adam Gase's team to die. That is what happens when you go to Adam Gase, and he did that. And again, that's why he shouldn't have gone there. That's why he should have found a way to stick with the Steelers. But now his career is wrecked. But hey, I am one person. I never. Unless you are like a hardened criminal and you have physically hurt people and you're like a bad person, I don't root for you to do bad in the league or anything like that. You know, I may not root for you, but I'm not gonna like say I hope that you like get hurt or I hope that you stink for the rest of your life. You know, but I do look at this as like, man, this is a desperate move by the Ravens, but still there's that sense of me like, man, if you told me this 4 years ago in 2017 when Le'Veon Bell was destroying people, I would have been like, I mean, first of all, if you had told me that Antonio Brown was a Buccaneer with Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl, I would have just said, shoot me. But when it comes to Le'Veon Bell, you know, again, it's crazy how quickly things can flip in the NFL. So this is still, you know, even though he's not going to be relevant in my eyes this season or in their games, it's still to me an interesting story to see how this guy's career has gone. But guys, we are over our time. We got to finish here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks so much for joining us here. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work. Dean.
Follow my work there at WPXI and Chris Carter on Wednesday night with the Fantasy Football Insider.
Woo! Jen and I are going head to head now, baby. We're doing doing a weekly fantasy like FanDuel lineup, so you can go see who Jen and I are picking each week and take our advice.
Nice. I'll take Jenna's advice. Then Friday night skylights.
You text me every day for fantasy. This man asked me like 12 draft questions the other night. Hey, do I get Zach Moss? Hey, when do I get Chase Claypool? Hey, and so now you're going to take Jenna's advice. Do you text Jenna for fantasy advice every day? I think not. Dean, don't even forget your outro. Josh, you tell people to follow you.
Just going to watch the show.
Dean, maybe eat 2 Snickers when we're done with this. You can find me in the Locked On Facebook group, on Twitter at Jaxelberg with an H. My work at postgazette.com. It's American Rust Week, baby.
Ooh.
You know, check me out on Thursday and Friday. I got a bunch of good content coming.
That's very cool. Always check out Josh Axelrod's work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at DKPittsburghSports.com. Listen to me here or watch me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast Monday through Friday on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Odyssey. And, of course, YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out. Leave us a 5-star rating with a positive comment on Apple Podcasts, and you get a special shout-out at the end of the show. Thanks again for listening. We got Crossover Thursday tomorrow with Joe Marino of the Locked On Bills podcast, breaking down both sides of this upcoming Week 1 matchup. Stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun.